As always, pull up a chair and make yourself at home. They're waiting. While these stories so far have been written by others, I decided to switch things up a bit and tell of one that happened to me. I grew up in a small city and an even smaller town. The area was vast and desolate, with the biggest attractions being the local movie theater or venturing around Walmart. My friends and I would often take drives out in the desert in search of some adventure, sometimes doing so just to cruise, listen to music, and enjoy our time outdoors. There was one occasion, though, where a friend and I decided to stray further out than we normally do. She and I both lived way on the outskirts of a small town that was about a 20 to 25 minute drive from the city, so it was easy to hop over to each other's homes to hang out. She was a thrill seeker and adrenaline junkie back then, and even now I'd say not much has changed. We were always looking for something new to get into. The golden light from the early evening sun started to wash over the terrain, causing creosote brush and cacti to emit a soft glow as they embraced the gentle rays of the sun. My friend Lynn pushed the pedal down on her 4Runner as we tore up the old back roads, leaving an illuminated cloud of dust behind our trail. Eventually, we slowed down as we ascended over a gradual slope, and upon reaching the top, we noticed a rather large property that was tucked away in this empty land. We didn't think it was impossible for anyone to live so out in the middle of nowhere, especially out there, but we hadn't expected to stumble across any homes. Except, as we slowly continued to move forward, we noticed this home seemed to be abandoned. The small house had its windows broken, the front door was slanted open, and we could tell the property overall hadn't been tended to in what appeared to be quite some time. Of course, we became more curious about this place. We soon noticed that down the hill a little ways, within the same property line as this old house, was a rather large, 2-story structure. The dirt road we were on seemed to loop around the perimeter, so we stayed on it to get a closer look at the larger building. Just like the house we first passed by, the structure was also very much derelict. It was a rather unique design, and while I'd like to call it a house, I can't really call it that due to its strange layout. It definitely wasn't your typical kind anyway. Lynn and I exchanged glances, both of us knowing what the other was thinking. Are we gonna go in? She put her truck in park, and we cautiously climbed out of the cab, surveying this building in ruins. There was an orchard attached to this property, although it was now long gone. The spindly trees in ashen color, dried up and brittle. A smaller shed was collapsed on itself by the creaky old gate we had to climb over. Nothing but debris and splintered wood. As we made our way over the gate, we scanned to our right and noticed a small and worn-down travel trailer. Next to it was a couple large trees, where behind them looked like something we could only assume was some type of shallow grave. It was about 5 feet in length and barely a couple feet deep. We didn't know what else to make out of it, and by the looks of it, it wasn't anything that had been done recently. You may think that this would have caused us to turn right back around and leave. Any logical person would, but we didn't. Instead, we slowly made our way to the entrance of the building. The gusty breeze whistled through the walls, and as it drifted through the broken windows, the melody sounded like a haunting hum. Imagine a garage that was converted into a basement, only this was on ground level, and included a rickety wooden spiral staircase that led to a second floor. There was a very small hallway that led to a rectangular room on the side, and in this room were about 4 large, wooden enclosures, all having caged doors. Something big enough to house a large dog or maybe something else. We anxiously peered into the cages and found nothing out of the ordinary, just empty enclosures with what appeared to be old straw bedding and some remnants of cloth. Lynn shot me a wary glance, and we muttered back and forth to each other our thoughts about this odd place. "What kind of setup is this?" she had asked. I replied saying I thought the same, and maybe it was even a workshop of some kind. A very odd workshop. As if our ideas couldn't get any more reasonable and more brilliant, we then took our investigation upstairs. Thin shards of broken glass crunched beneath our feet as we moved toward the narrow stairwell. A couple stairs were even missing, but still, we continued. We carefully landed ourselves on the second level, my paranoia telling me we were going to have a run-in with some malicious individual, but instead, it was completely clear. The upstairs only had 2 rooms that were fairly small, somewhat of a loft. Old clothes, furniture, and other various items were scattered about. Everything looked as though it had been untouched for years. Once we were content with our exploring, Lynn and I decided to claim this strange, barren spot. We left before night fully fell, and later told a couple of our friends about our find. As we figured, they too wanted to come out and see this abandoned building for themselves, and the setting was something perfect for a spooky night around a campfire. How could we resist? And just like that, our weekend plans were made. When Lynn and I returned with a couple more of our friends, Ben and Holly, the house on the outside looked just how we first found it. The sun was already dipping below the horizon, so we began building a fire in a clearing out front. A decent while later, we wanted to give our friends a tour of the place, showing them the inside to see what they thought, especially with the strange room with the cage-like boxes. By this time, it was pretty dark out, so Lynn and I did the honors of carrying flashlights. The glow from our small fire danced across the walls of the old home, the night becoming darker the further away we ventured from it. Our friend Ben took a great interest in the paranormal, so he had brought along a camera to snap pictures around the building and property throughout our time there. All of us were curious what the image might capture, if anything. Upon walking in, cautiously yet adrenaline-filled, Lynn and I were instantly taken aback. Our 2 friends thought nothing of it, since this was their first time in, but Lynn and I both knew that this was definitely different. There was now VHS tape strung all over the main room of this building. VHS tape that certainly was not there before. It looked like someone threw it around to make some type of weird decoration. I turned to her with my jaw slightly dropped in bewilderment, the beam of my flashlight gliding over the silky black tape, and Ben in the background snapping pictures. My friend Lynn silently mouthed "what the hell" to me, trying to just go with it and continue our night of fun. We continued on to the room that housed the 4 cage-like boxes, but that's when it got even worse. In one of the cages now sat a stuffed teddy bear. It may sound harmless enough, nothing really scary about that, but there was one thing that made this very disturbing. The head had been severed, exposing the soft white stuffing as it protruded from the material. Considering our circumstances and surroundings, something as simple as this became quite sinister. Lynn shook her head and looked at me, and our other 2 friends fell completely silent. Was this all some sort of prank? a warning. We explained to Ben and Holly that we didn't do this as some sort of joke. Typically, they'd roll their eyes at us and tell us to give up trying to play it off. But this time, it was different. They could both tell we were uneasy, so they believed us right away. Given the eerie surprises we'd already received, none of us could build up the nerve to wander upstairs. Finally, we just decided to leave, and maybe that was for the best. Our night still carried on, although we left that house much earlier than anticipated. The tape, the haunting sounds of the wind, and the grim finding of the teddy bear was enough for us to fully douse the fire and get the hell out of Dodge. To this day, we still bring up that haunting, derelict building, reminiscing its odd structure and what it may have been used for, how eerie the findings of the tape and teddy bear had been. How did they get there, and for what reasons? When I say this house was in the middle of nowhere, I mean the middle of nowhere. But that doesn't eliminate the possibilities of someone else having stumbled upon this place, just like we did. A place where hardly any soul would touch. Ben never did seem to catch anything of significance on his camera, although one picture was something we all could never explain. I still remember my reaction when first seeing it. It was during that same night we left the house after our strange discoveries. We parked out in the desert close to home, talking over each other out of fear and excitement as we huddled around to look at Ben's camera. Then we noticed it, and my eyes watered as a wave of chills covered me. It was a picture of the large main level room. One of our flashlight beams was shining toward the small hallway that led to the room of cages, only there was something distorting part of the beam. We tried to come up with skeptical reasons of what it could have been, but none of them really made sense. Just a milky looking part in the image, like something was caught in motion, moving, blocking the light's path. This experience became the highlight of our conversations for a good while after that, and even though I've since moved from the area, I sometimes wonder if that place even still stands, and if it does, what might it be holding within its walls now, and what secrets may it have held before? If only walls could talk.